Hey, and welcome back to By Myself But Not Alone. This is episode 6, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Now, where we left off last episode, I got my headlight fixed and I hopped on I-29 North, headed back to Fargo. I made it to Fargo in really good time. I headed on straight on through Grand Forks and right up to the border. When I got to the border, I had to pull off into the customs area. The nice young lady started asking me some questions. You know, what's your reason for coming to Canada? How long are you going to be here? Are you meeting anybody? All that good stuff. I told her I was coming from near St. Louis. I would be there for 4 days, and I was there to see 2 Metallica shows. She kind of looked over at me and said, "Wow, you must be a big fan." I reached over on the seat, held up my black ticket, told her the quick story behind it, and I told her that if Metallica's going to let me go to all 35 shows with 1 ticket, you can bet I'm going to do everything I can to make all 35 shows. And 2 of them happened to be in Canada. At that point, she said, "Wow, what did that cost?" Never mind the questions, we're done with that, but I'm just curious, what did that cost? And I told her $5.98, and she said, "Wow, that's a really good deal. Welcome to Canada, have a nice day." It was that easy. As soon as I passed through the gate and got in the entrance lane and back on the road, I glanced up at my phone that was mounted on the dash. I was going to check the time and see how many miles we were from Winnipeg. And when I did that, I noticed that it said no connection, emergency calls only. And Michelle popped into my head. I grabbed the phone, messed around with it, tried to make a phone call, no connection, emergency calls only. Tried to access the internet, no connection, emergency calls only. Damn it, I should have listened to Michelle. I put the phone back up on its holder, said, "Well, this won't be too bad. How big can Winnipeg be?" And I knew I was pretty close, probably an hour away, based on the last time I had looked, maybe a little over an hour. So I just headed on. I was almost there. I knew it wouldn't be long and I'd be relaxing in my hotel. Well, that's not exactly what happened. I figured I'd just pick a street and drive across the whole city and see if the road I was looking for intersected. And if it didn't, I'd have to go the other way. Man, I did that for a couple hours and I learned that Winnipeg is not set up like St. Louis. It's pretty easy to get lost in St. Louis and then find yourself. But man, this was nothing like St. Louis. After about 3 hours of driving around that city aimlessly, I was just about to drive back across the border so I can get phone service and, write out a map for myself. But I happened to come across the street I was looking for. Looked on one of the buildings. It was like under 100 was the street address. I was looking for 3600, so it was going to take a minute, but at least I found the street. So I just headed on down the road. I believe it was Portage Avenue. But anyway, it took a while, but I finally saw the sign for the hotel. I pulled in, went to the desk, checked in, but now I had a new problem. I didn't know what room Michelle was in, and I wasn't sure they were going to tell me. Confidentiality stuff. I turned around, and there she was coming down the steps. She said, "Where you been?" I said, "Well, my phone doesn't work." She kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, I think I tried to tell you that." "Yes, Michelle, you were right. I should have listened to you." But I didn't. So I told her, "Sit tight, let me go throw my things up in my room. Be right back down, we'll go out and have some smokes." Kind of like we'd done at the last place. So we did that. We went out front. We're standing there smoking, talking about my my trip of being lost. And all of a sudden, we turn around and there's a guy standing there. And he asked if he could bum a smoke. Now, this was one interesting looking character. He had some wild hair. I mean, it stood tall. It was kind of like just a big poof ball that went way up. And I mean, it was unique. So we gave him a smoke, gave him a light. He saw our shirts and asked us if we were in town to see the show. We told him we were. He started telling us about the times he had seen Metallica in the past. Turns out he was a really big Metallica fan. We had an interesting little conversation with him. And at this point, he asked us if we would happen to have any spare change because he was living on the streets. So we said, "No, all we have is credit cards," which was the truth. And then I remembered I had some change in my bag. So what the heck? Asked him if he could do anything with American change. I said, "I got a couple dollars. Let me run up and get it." Ran up to the room, came back with a handful of change. He was very appreciative. We smoked a couple more cigarettes. He was on his way. We went on in. And right when we got to the top of the stairs, I stopped and looked at Michelle and said, "You know who we just met?" She said, I didn't remember him saying his name. And I said, "We just met Fluffy." And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Metallica covers a song called "Bread Fan" by Budgie. Right at the end of it, there's this childish voice that says, "Mommy, where's Fluffy?" We both got a kick out of that. And she said, "We did meet Fluffy." We both just kind of laughed. And again, we weren't really, making hard fun of the guy. It was just comical. We stayed up for a couple hours talking. I believe I mentioned before that this chick could talk. She could out-talk me and get us together, and we were just yapping for hours. We talked a little bit more about Fluffy. When we were talking to him outside, when we found out that he was a Metallica fan, I asked him if I could interview him. I told him about my project. And he said, "Oh, no, I'm kind of wanted." He was wanted on some drug charges. No big deal, I understand. But when Michelle and I were talking, we agreed that, man, we wish we had a picture of that dude's hair. It was so wild. But anyway, like I said, the conversation went on for a couple hours. I went to my room, we went to bed. Got up the next morning. We really weren't in any hurry. I overslept a little bit in comparison to the previous shows. But we finally hopped in the car and headed on down to find the arena. It wasn't going to be that hard because her phone still worked. She did the right thing. So we had Google Maps. And on the ride to the arena, Fluffy came up again. And I said, "Man, I wish we'd gotten a picture." And I said, "I got an idea. If we run into that guy again, whoever's in the position to do it, distract. And the other person, snap a picture." It was kind of dirty, but hey, we had a plan. She laughed and said, "We got this." I don't think either one of us really believed that we were going to ever see that guy again, but we had a solid plan just in case we did. We finally got real close to the arena, so we started really paying attention to find the location. And I missed the first 5 or 6 chances for a parking garage. The way the roads were, we kind of circled around a few times. We probably spent an hour trying to park. Maybe not an hour, but it seemed like it. We finally got in a parking garage, out the door. We were on the streets of Winnipeg. Now we just had to find the arena. We knew we were close, so we figured we'd just kind of head in the direction we thought it was, and when we started seeing people in Metallica shirts, we'd just join them. Michelle had a better idea. She used her phone, punched it up, and she said, nope, I think it's over this way. So we headed that way, a couple blocks. We never found it. It seemed like the directions on the screen were changing, so we just stopped a lady walking by, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's right over there," and it wasn't quite in the same direction that the GPS was saying. We thanked her. We went the way she told us. We went a couple blocks, and we still didn't find it. It almost seemed like we were walking in circles. So not only did I get lost the night before trying to find Winnipeg, now we were lost on foot in Winnipeg. It was kind of different, but we were having a good time. Then I finally looked down the street and said, "Well, look, there it is. That's got to be an arena." Michelle said, "I don't know." And I said, "Look at it. It's an arena. Let's go." We walked on down about 3 blocks. We got down in front of it, and I said, "I don't think this is the arena." She was right again. So I said, "I'm just going to go. You lead, and I'll go anywhere you tell me to go." So she navigated pretty good, and we finally found the arena. When we got to the arena, the next job was to find the black ticket line. So we went on up some steps, 2nd floor, and walked around following the signs. Signs kept coming, we kept walking. Turns out we walked all the way around the arena and then down some steps. If we would have just gone around the stairs that we went up in the first place, we would have gone right to where we needed to be, we think. But anyway, we found it, we got our ticket. They took us in, put us in a line with the rest of the black ticket and experienced people. And because we got a late start, and then we got lost on foot, I really didn't have any time to talk to any fans, to ask my questions. I did get a black ticket introduction for that video, but when I went back and listened, it was completely inaudible. I'm not sure what went wrong. Pretty soon the line started moving. We headed on in, same as the last show. Michelle parked herself right up on the rail, and I took off to go around taking pictures. I ended up over by Joe Sib's sound booth. Ola and Glenn were over there, the Vikings of Norway. I got to meet Chris Johnson and his sister Erin. It was nice to meet you guys. A couple other black ticket holders. That's kind of where we hung out right up until Jim came on the stage. Once again, Jim's show was great. He really had the crowd going. It seemed to be a very large crowd. That night I heard 13,000 in attendance, but the next day I read an article that said there were 17,000 and that they broke their own record from 2009 for indoor arena attendance record. So again, Joe put on a great show. He really had the crowd interacting with him. I got to talk with Joe in between his duties of spinning records. It was pretty cool talking to him. Before you know it, we heard the angels singing. The Ecstasy of Gold was playing. We all kind of shifted up, slid into the crowd. Metallica came on, tore it up as they always do. During the first song, I turned around and there was Mark Porcelli, Porcel MC from Met Club. So we hung out during the show. I turned this way and there's Glenn and Ola. Ola had 2 beers, handed me a beer. Ola, I owe you a beer. But we kind of stayed right there till the end of the show. Near the end of the show, Mark leaned in and he said, I wonder if they're going to do Spit Out the Bone. I got a feeling they're going to mix it up tonight. Next song was the slot where Spit Out the Bone would have been. He called it. They played Blackened. That's one of the many all-time Metallica favorites I have, but it was really good to hear it live. The whole set list at this point was a good combination of songs. A lot of the songs we've been hearing were the same songs, but just the way they mixed it up. It wasn't the same set list each night, like, you know, with 2 different changes. They really mixed the whole list up and usually interject 1 or 2 cool deep cuts. After Blackened, they played Nothing Else Matters, and when you hear Nothing Else Matters, you know what time it is. That's when, at the end, James takes a pick. One of the city picks, spins it, and they zoom in on it. You get a good look at what the pick's going to look like. Then there's one more song. You know it, Enter Sandman. Then they go around tossing the picks. So I always get excited when I hear Nothing Else Matters because I know what's coming. The challenge of my 2 picks per show. I did it again. I got my 2. I actually got a couple extra. I got 2 extra. So I thought I had some to trade. That's always good. Went around and found Michelle. Turned out she got 5 or 6. She did really well. So we headed back out on the street. We had to find our parking garage. Hopefully it wasn't going to take as long as it took us to find the venue. It didn't. We were lost a little bit, but we finally found our way. Now the parking garage was attached to an office complex and a restaurant. And we exited the office complex's lobby door. Well, those doors were locked, so we didn't know how we were going to get back to the car. So we walked down by the restaurant. And there was a guy standing there. It turned out he was the restaurant owner. And we told him what our problem was. He said, here, I'll let you in. You can go through this way. Just speak to the guard in there. So we thanked him and we went on in. When we got in there, the guard stood up and he said, what are you doing in my building? With a real steep Canadian accent. We told him that nice man let us in and he told us to come see you. He said, okay, so let me let you out. So he took us over to the stairwell. We had to go up. He explained to us how to get there. We remembered, but we let him tell us anyway. We thanked him. We thought we were going to walk away. But he asked how the concert was. He started telling us he was a huge Metallica fan. So there we stood in the stairwell. He was at the bottom, holding the door open. And we just kept, this guy could out-talk either one of us. So there we were. The 3 of us had a heck of a conversation. I made the mistake of bringing up hockey. And it really wasn't a mistake because we enjoyed the interaction with this guy. When you're in Canada, you bring up hockey. As you probably know, you better be ready for a conversation. He was all about the Winnipeg Jets, obviously. At some point, I made the mistake of saying, let's go Blues. And, oh, it looked like fighting words. But anyway, we were in there for probably 45 minutes. So the conversation was bouncing back and forth from hockey to Metallica. Back and forth. And towards the end of it all, he stated how much he really wanted to go to the show, but he had to work, and there was just no getting out of it. And he was such a cool guy, I couldn't help it. I reached in my pocket and I said, hey, man, how'd you like to have this? And I handed it to him. He got all excited. That led to another 10 minutes worth of conversations. So anyway, we said goodbye. He took off that way. The door closed. We went that way, hopped in my car, headed back to the hotel. We hung out outside in front of the hotel, smoking, talking about the show, really hoping that Fluffy would show back up so we could enact our plan. He never showed up, so we went back to our rooms, called it a night. The next morning, we were down in the lobby checking out, and the lady behind the desk said, oh my God, I love these guys even more than ever now. We kind of looked at her, and she said, Metallica donated $10,000 to the local food bank. And she was just really impressed, and you could just see she was really excited. That was kind of cool, and I had heard that they've been doing that all along in each city. So it wasn't a surprise, but their foundation, the All Within My Hands Foundation, everywhere they go, they do a lot of good. So it was kind of cool to be in a position to see the ripple effect. It wasn't like she was the lady that got the check. You could just see how how happy it made her, though, to hear the news that that had happened in her town. So we both checked out. We headed back to our cars. I used Michelle's phone to try to get a room in Saskatoon the night of the show. I could only get one the night before the show. But I looked up on Google Maps the route. There was pretty much only one route. All I had to do was follow the signs. So we were just kind of hanging out there talking, still wishing that we had landed a picture of Fluffy. And all of a sudden I looked over and I said, what do you know? Look who's coming. And Michelle looked up. He walked on up. Looked like he had a rough night. He asked if he could have a smoke. I was happy to give him one. It was kind of funny. Michelle had her hatch popped and she was sitting on the back of her car. Well, old Fluffy just plopped down right next to her. So we told him about the show, told him the songs they played, showed him the pics. He thought that was really cool. He seemed genuinely interested in what we had to say. And then, I don't know how it progressed into this, but he started telling us about his rough night. Started talking about his drug addiction. And he was pretty hardcore. I mean, we kind of suspected that he might have a little drug problem, but he kind of gave us the details that screamed, oh my God. But anyway, again, I really don't know how it progressed into this, but we knew he was homeless. Now we know he's a big-time addict, and he started telling us about his transitional surgery. He's transgender, and he was just telling us all this stuff, and so we started asking him questions. It was a very interesting conversation. I mean, it's not every day that you get to meet a guy in that situation to have casual conversation with. Can't say it's ever happened to me. And he didn't mind any of the things that we asked him. He asked us all kinds of questions about our lives and ourselves. Turned out we hung out with this guy for about 3 hours. It was just a unique situation. And the reason I'm telling you about this is the guy was a huge Metallica fan, just like the security guard the night before. Vastly different lifestyle, but these two guys are both good examples of the fact that no matter where you are on Earth, you're probably just around the corner from a Metallica fan. They come from all walks of life. And it was really cool talking to that guard. It was really cool talking to old Fluffy. I ended up telling him, man, we were going to do something we shouldn't have done. And I told him about our little plan to get his picture. I told him, we just think you're a very unique character. And we wanted a picture for our scrapbook. I'm not a cop. She's not a cop. Are you a cop, Michelle? Michelle said, I'm not a cop. So we're going to ask you one more time. Would you mind if we took a picture? He looked right at us and said, hell with it. Let's do it. I promised we wouldn't share them on social media. We wouldn't put them anywhere. They were just for our own memory of this unique individual we met in Winnipeg, knowing that for the rest of our lives, each one of us, as we heard Bread Fan, when it hit the end, Mommy, where's Fluffy? We both know right where Fluffy is. He's in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So he posed for a picture with each one of us. We gave him a couple more cigarettes, and he just disappeared off into his life. There was a Burger King right across the street, so we went over and grabbed something to eat. When we were done, Michelle jumped in her car and headed back to Wisconsin. I jumped in my car and headed to Saskatoon. So Michelle, I just want to say it was super cool meeting you and hanging out with you for a couple days. I had a great time. I look forward to doing it again down the line in legs 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, we're going to hang out again. That was really cool. Again, I apologize for not having any video footage, but Alexander's going to throw together a cool little video with the still shots I took. If you like what we have going on here, we'd appreciate it greatly if you consider subscribing to our channel. Give us a like, a dislike, whatever the case may be. Leave us a comment. Tell your friends about us. Share the video. Ring the bell. Next stop, Saskatoon. Until then, rock on.
So, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that one side to side. what's on the side. Do it now.